You can't see me right now, but I'm right behind this tree. I'm about to... Okay, yeah, you see me. Oh, here comes this old baby. Hello. Hi. What's your name? Hi. How you doing? Good, good, good. Spring is in the air. Youth. Hi. I'm Yoonha Park. I'm an American filmmaker based in New York City. Here we are in beautiful New York in Fort Greene Park. It's a beautiful day. 43 degrees. Take one. Scene one. Marker. When I first wanted to be a filmmaker, it had less to do with like having some big statement or a style in place. It was just trying to like put things on film, you know, and just like, and on repeat viewing, what makes something interesting and worth watching again. And in my case, that was just punk bands living in South Korea. Part of it was that I'd never seen that kind of thing before, in that shape and context. And so there was some element of just like, I just need to preserve this for the future, for somebody to see. By the time I started working for Pitchfork and doing Juan's Basement, we're now shooting multi-camera, 24p Panasonic cameras were really hot, so it like looked like film. That was really exciting. So all these tools, all these kind of fancy toys to play with, but is still just in service of recreating the energy of that live experience. For about a year, we were just shooting and editing live music every day, and that was like the best kind of best school just to understand how to shoot music. I met Ernest around 2010. I think it was right when his full length was about to come out. He had seen this video I did for Small Black that was sort of an experiment with documentary style. Around this time, this is like a few years after the financial crisis, and there were a lot of subway ads from Icelandair advertising, tourism to Iceland because Iceland's economy tanked. We were leaning into this idea of these kind of beachy, exotic locales. But I said, well, rather instead of like white beaches and like blue water, how about black beaches and like volcanoes? And he's like, I love it. And so we went for it. I think I storyboarded all of it just off of like Google Maps, and that became like our itinerary. And so that's kind of how we approached it. We just was just a few of us went on a road trip around Iceland with the 7D and shot this thing. The cameras were so good that like if you just spend money on location and like go somewhere where like the light is good and like the you can kind of shoot 360 degrees, like that would sort of pay for itself. And like in Iceland in the summertime is absolutely that. And plus it's like daylight for almost 24 hours, so it's like you just keep shooting and shooting. His music is so lush and melodramatic and filled with such, capital F feelings. It sort of soundtracks this idealized memory of your teenage years. I don't remember most of the classes I took in high school, but, certain moments like prom, you remember every single moment. And so the idea was sort of to take one of those moments and kind of give it that examination and, this extreme 1,000 frames per second slow motion seemed to be kind of like the best way to visualize that idea. The music is a soundtrack to this period in your life where every crisis feels like the end of the fucking world, so we thought it'd be great to just kind of literally do that, like have this car crash take on this like astronomical scale. There's a great movie, I think it's called The Lookout. I think Scott Frank directed it. There's this great opening sequence where these kids are leaving prom and it's like the best night of their life, and they just get in this horrific car accident. So I think that was probably buried somewhere in my head too, and we kind of just like went off on this idea of like these like beautiful kids on prom night getting in this like horrific accident. Video directors, you use Vimeo as a platform, and I think around this time they had this feature where you could see the engagement from viewers to a point where you could see how much of the video people were watching and at what point they lost interest, which was both a great and terrible thing for a filmmaker to see. So I kind of became obsessed with this idea of really finding something that would force the viewer to watch until the very end, just to see what happens. That seemed to fit Liars and their approach to music. I think they're masters of deconstruction, and I think they have a real sense of humor about their image. There's a company that does body casting scans. I think the reason they were in town is they were doing like body scans for Ant-Man. We only made the two heads that are in the video, so when it came to the point we were melting them, we were all just shitting bricks, because if something went wrong, we were just fucked. I think we just had one. This is like I've since learned to be a more responsible filmmaker, but yeah, we were really just like some real ride or die shit at that time. I think the satire definitely comes from just the juxtaposition of these extreme visuals and just the fact that it's like a bald guy in a computer kind of making it happen. That song initially just felt like either a breakup song or just something. There was just a lot of bitterness behind it, and it just made me think of it. I kind of imagined this like teenage boy character just kind of stewing in his room and just conjuring all these dark, angry thoughts, but just not really being smart enough to like come up with like really articulate his rage. And it made me think of the sequence from Clockwork Orange where Alex is in his bedroom listening to Beethoven. And he's like having these fantasies of ultraviolence, but even his fantasies are just kind of like limited by his like poor education, and like they're just all sort of mediated through pop culture and old movies and that kind of thing. So we sort of made this pastiche of like recreations of old movies, in this case like Night of the Hunter, and sort of like we kind of wanted to conjure these, the idea of like a woman like tied to a train track, that kind of thing, this sort of weird abstraction of violence, and then recreate a lot of images from this painter Michael Bormans, this Belgian painter, and but it was all serving this idea that it's just like this kind of stream of consciousness, thought ramblings of this angry kid. Anxiety is really kind of Continental Shelf Take Two. It was just like it's almost kind of like imagining that same sort of teenage boy character be tilted a little bit more towards kind of images of terror and horror, like a kind of like gothic tinged images. The big difference is that like we wanted to include images of the band, which involved I had to fly out to the rehearsal in this remote village in Western Canada, which was kind of a blast. They were surrounded by waterfalls and mountain ranges. It looked a lot like Chewbacca's planet. I don't know if you've been to like the Canadian Rockies before, but I wanted it to feel like a sloppy remake of Blade Runner, like something a teenager would make. Just like we're getting their like good-looking friend and just going out in the rain and shooting cool images. I think it should have been a little shittier. I think the problem is like we made it look a little too slick and just like we didn't have a story to back it up or anything. By the time the Liars Credwoes video came around, I'd been really frustrated with projects in that I felt like I wasn't getting enough footage and shooting enough setups. And so we took this very prescriptive approach where from the outset the whole plan was just to shoot a lot of material in a way that would allow for a really open-ended edit. I remember wanting to have just a new cut every 2 seconds of the song that wasn't a repeat ever. So when we did the math, it just meant that we had to shoot like, X number of setups total and X number of setups a day. So we ended up shooting for something like 6 days, which is insane for like a no-budget music video.
I took all my clothes out, stay dressed in pre-approved jeans.
And we got that shooting ratio, but like the edit was just a nightmare. And like there were just so many different paths to go down and things to explore. But back in the Juan's Basement days, we did this shoot with Deerhoof. We shot on all locked off cameras that were all framed the same way, and I realized that if you do that in the edit, you can cut very, very fast and it's not disorienting. We had this book of like Soviet edit, like propaganda techniques that we just open up and be like, we would just like read the description of some montage theory and then just like apply it directly.
I like to say when kids are calling me out that they should follow my footsteps instead of fooling around.
In terms of like real life New York influence on this video, I did work as a delivery man at some point, and that's both a like quintessential New York job and just like in both positive and negative ways. It's like there's nothing cooler than zooming around on a bike, just like on an assignment or something. But just people just treat you like absolute shit, like nobody tips. Like I tip my delivery men all the time. But just like, I could not believe that how little people tip. The specific New York things that are part of that video, I'm very happy about. Like, I think we happened upon like an Italian street fair, which is like quintessential New York thing. And just being able to spend that much time in Chinatown was really fun.
Trigger editing, a zip code, a last name, a cell forming, a businessman's handshake.
The song is about, it's almost like this scream of trying to exert some control over the absurdity of life. And that's something, the image that sort of grew out of that was, and his like refrain in it is just like, I decide who lives and who dies. But it's just sort of like the kind of empty scream of some guy who has actually no control over anything. It made me think of Harold and Maude when like Harold has these kind of these like staged suicide scenes throughout the movie. That's like this motif, and like the way it's treated tonally in the movie, it's just like you as the audience are not sure if it's, did he just blow his brains out, or like did he actually just hang himself? But like we just wanted to put the band members in these like scenarios where they were just like kind of destroying themselves. It didn't take much convincing. I feel like all of us, all the band members and me had those feelings before, so when I pitched it was just like, oh yeah, I'll chop my hand off or I'll set my hand on fire.